again, John Wild here to give you another look at vintage action figures. At this time, we're going to be looking at Kenner's Robocop and the Ultra Police toy line from 1988. In 1987, Robocop the movie hit the theaters, and everybody rejoiced. It was a great movie, a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it was an R-rated movie, and even though the kids wanted to go and see it, they couldn't see it because it was an R-rated movie. Now, I think that I was able to see this movie only because I snuck into the theater. So, it only makes sense that Kenner would be looking at making this a toy line, right? So fast forward to 1988, when Marvel Animation created Robocop and the Ultra Police cartoon. Also in 1988, Kenner Toys produced their action figure line, Robocop and the Ultra Police. This included 16 figures in 2 series, 3 different varieties of Robocop in that series, 5 different vehicles, and 1 playset. The television show ran for 12 episodes between October 1st, 1988 to December 17th, 1988. It wasn't really a very popular show. Unfortunately, Robocop and the Ultra Police wasn't a very successful toy line, it wasn't a very successful cartoon, but was an immensely popular and successful movie. Now, what went wrong here? Well, the first thing I would think is that it's an R-rated movie and you're trying to produce a toy line off of a G-rated cartoon, but you didn't translate all the characters over, or the ones that you didn't get them right really in the first place. The figures that are of Ann Lewis and Sergeant Reed really don't look like the characters from the movies. Not that kids should have been seeing those movies, but I'm sure we did anyways. The vehicles were kind of neat, I gotta say that, but they really didn't look like the vehicles from the movie. I think it was a Ford Taurus that they painted flat black was the cop cars. Whereas these toys from the cartoon series have kind of back metallized plastic and they're very flashy and a lot of bright kind of colors to them. Not exactly the same thing as the movie, but the toy line is about the cartoon series, so that's understandable. By 1988, I was out of collecting toys, so I didn't even look at these things. I really didn't. I watched the movie. I think I was 15. So I watched the movie. I didn't have anything to do with these toys, so they're past my toy time. Now, as an adult collector, these are the only 2 figures I really think I need in my collection because they look like the characters from the movie. And I know they're supposed to look like the characters from the cartoon show, but they look like the characters from the movie. That's why they're in my collection, and that's why I'm talking about them today. They're really cool figures. The rest of the figures in the line, I don't care to own. No offense to anybody who's a big fan of the Robocop and the Ultra Police line, that's cool. But just for me, these are the guys I want in my collection. So let's get a closer look at the Robocop figure on card first. So moving on to the back of the card, we have a brief description of Robocop and the Ultra Police. Here it is. Robocop and the Ultra Police are the ultimate in law enforcement, the best, most technical, advanced police squad ever assembled to battle the world's worst criminals, the Vandals, led by the king of crime, Headhunter, and his evil henchman, Nitro, are Robocop and the Ultra Police's first job. Moving down the card, we see the other figures that are also available with this action figure set at this time. So we have Robocop, Wheels Wilson, Birdman Barnes, and Ace Jackson. And on the other side, the Vandals, we have the Headhunter and Nitro. Moving down to the bottom of the card, we have the 3 vehicles that were available at that time. We have Robo 1, the Robo Cycle, and the Skull Hog. So here we have Robocop out of the package. Let's take a closer look at this figure. The Robocop figure came with 4 accessories. He came with the top of his helmet, he came with his pistol, and he came with 2 rolls of caps. The gun that comes with the Robocop figure doesn't look at all like the gun he used in the movies. And I'm not even really too sure whether it looks like the gun he used in the cartoon show. It's really kind of big and clunky, but fortunately it's pretty big, so it's kind of hard to lose. You know, definitely isn't the same size as like a Star Wars gun, so you'd have a harder time to lose it. So I guess it's all right that it's a bigger gun. It fits well in his hand, and he looks pretty good with it. As an added bonus, the gun does fit onto Robocop's hip. Unfortunately, though, his arm is kind of hindered from going all the way down by the gun, but having a spot to store your weapon is actually a pretty cool thing for an action figure. The other feature of this figure is a removable helmet, and it's pretty cool. So here we have Robocop. He looks pretty good with his helmet on. Side view, though, it does look a little bit unusual that way. Front on, he looks great. Just the sides, it's a little bit different, but they had to do that with the scaling of the head to the body. So if you remove the helmet, like so, there you have Murphy underneath it. And they did a nice job sculpting the face. Looks great. The back of the head has all that kind of computer detail and stuff. Really nice job. Unfortunately, though, if you don't have this helmet, this figure is kind of wonky looking. So a lot of the times when you are looking to find Robocop figures, this is the way you find your Robocop, and it just isn't it's a nice play feature, but unfortunately he just looks a heck of a lot better with that helmet on versus the helmet off, and the majority of the time when you do find this figure, the helmet is missing. So it's unfortunate, but he looks great with that helmet on, don't he? So now here's the action feature of the figure. So on the back of the figure here we have this handle that you can pull down and snap back up again. That is for the caps that came provided with the figure. So what you would do is you would push up on the back. That would release the backpack basically, and then that folds down like so, and you can see inside of the back of the figure he has a little strike plate there. You can kind of see the strike plate and the striker. So what you would do then is you would feed the caps up into the figure. Slides pretty easily up and through there. Once you do that, grab the end, you're going to pull it up and through, and then you push the back up again and pull down. That aligns up your snaps, so now your figure is armed and ready to go. You're definitely going to need your gun, so we'll put a gun in his hand. So now that we have the cap feature installed onto the figure, we can go on and show off how that works. So basically, we're going to pull down on there and done. Ah, there we go. Another one. Another one. Even some smoke coming out of there. That's pretty cool. So for an action gimmick, the cap firing action was pretty cool. I can't say that I would have run through the caps probably in the first 5 minutes and then been bothering my mom to go get me some more caps. But, you know, not a bad gimmick, really. Were a lot worse in the 80s. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with this action figure. He's very nice. Sculpting is good, size is good, details are great, accessories kind of poor, but the cap firing action was probably an interesting new spin on the action figure of the time. It didn't really go much beyond the Robocop series, but it's pretty cool. Now let's take a look at Ed 260, also known as Ed 209. Here's Ed 260, also known as Ed 209. And let's bring in Robocop here to check out the scale. Unfortunately, they didn't quite get the scale proper. Ed 209 in the movie is quite a bit bigger than Robocop. They're about, well, maybe Ed's a little bit bigger than Robocop, but definitely the scaling is a little bit off. But for play value, it probably was all right anyways. So let's get a closer look at Ed 209 or Ed 260. Here's the front of the figure and the back. Now let's take a look at the articulation of the figure. So he could click right and left, look up, and look down. I guess that's 2 points of articulation. Left and right motion, up and down motion. His legs would also rotate up and down. Some people consider this a 3-point of articulation figure because the legs move and the top of the figure moves only because the legs move. But it does have a pretty good range of motion down and up, and the legs and hinder it maybe from coming back any further, but if it would come back too much further, it would just fall backwards. So it's able to hold its own weight even into a low position like that, or in its traditional standing position. Here's a look at the right side of the figure and the left. Like Robocop, Ed 260 also had the cap firing action. And to do this, you would lift up on the back, and that would open up the compartment to reveal the striker plate and the striker. Let's add some caps. Now that Ed is locked and loaded, let's try out the cap firing feature. I think of all the Robocop figures, this one is by far my favorite. It is a great toy. The articulation, the clicking noises, the cap firing feature, the sculpting of this figure, it really is awesome. And that character, be it either Ed 260 or Ed 209 in the film, was a very memorable character, and this is a great representation of that character. So I'm impressed with it. I like it, and I'm very proud to have it in my collection. So this is a really funny toy line. I don't really know what to say about it other than the fact that these two figures are really the only essential figures that you probably need in your collection. The rest of them, I think, are not all that great. But it interests me that in 1979, Kenner Toys decided to come out with Alien action figures and then pulled them off the shelves quickly because they realized they had an R-rated property that they were dealing with. Fast forward just a few years later, and they're making Robocop action figures. And it wasn't just Kenner that did this. Coleco did Rambo, and Diamond did Commando, which were ultra-violent action movies that have toy lines. So why did Kenner choose Robocop? Well, I guess by '88, they really hadn't had a hit in a long time. Star Wars had been off the shelves for better than 3 years. They were probably quite desperate to find some kind of a property to put some money back into their pockets. Unfortunately, they picked Robocop. It just didn't work. I don't know if parents let their kids have these toys because the movie was an R-rated movie. That was kind of a big thing back then. Maybe it isn't such a big thing now, but it certainly was back then. Again, really, now as an adult collector, these are the only two figures that I think you need. So that's been my look at Robocop and the Ultra Police. I would like to thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to catch my latest uploads. And until next time, dead or alive, you're coming with me. It's easier said than done, especially with a camera in front of you. Son of a